What's going on, MMA fans? I'm back to do my video concerning the post-fight antics on StrikeForce, as well as talk about some things that concern the state of mixed martial arts. Well, number one, what happened if you didn't get to see this? Mayhem Miller comes into the cage. Walks up to Jake Shields as Gus Johnson is interviewing him after Jake Shields has won, and Mayhem Miller's, kind of jokingly says, "Where's my rematch?" Before that, Jake Shields kind of tapped him, on the stomach, jokingly to Mayhem Miller, like, "Hey, what's up?" There was no animosity. Then all of a sudden, you see Gilbert Melendez kind of come over. He kind of gives a half shove, and then Jake Shields gives him a full shove, and then just craziness ensues. Both the Diaz brothers jump in, the whole entourage jumps in, and they start just doing a full-on bully beatdown on Mayhem Miller. Kind of ironic, right? Bully beatdown, Mayhem Miller. You've got Gus Johnson saying, "Hey, guys, we're on national television. What are you doing?" Yeah. This kind of stuff right here, as well as what happened with Anderson Silva, I could even go back to guys like Crazy Horse Bennett that have been disrespectful in the cage or the ring. This kind of stuff doesn't help MMA. Disrespect is not part of the sport. Martial arts in general, there's always been an unspoken rule of respect. After the regulation of MMA, not only in the United States, but even regulation over in Japan, that was an unspoken rule as well, as respect. After, in the cage, and generally after fights, some guys, they get a little crazy, and that's understandable, just because of nerves and stuff, but, this foolishness doesn't help MMA. Casual fans, diehard fans, that see this, question what's going on, why is this happening, and it pisses them off. And then you've got people that are writing articles on the outside, about the sport, that see this stuff and then, view it again into that limelight of human cockfighting and a bunch of just, Neanderthals being involved in this sport. And it's sad because the publicity is not necessarily good publicity. And with the sport being as young as it is, it's not an established sport. Yeah, basketball, baseball, they can have these kind of things happen and they can survive. But when you're a sport that is young in its infancy and is being still stringently looked at by so many different places, do you think New York wants to regulate MMA after seeing that in their state? Do you think that Canada wants to regulate MMA after seeing that? You got to think about these things. And that is the serious problem with these kind of things happening, is that it sets the sport back instead of moving it forward. It's just sad. I mean, really, other than that, I don't know what else to say. StrikeForce, I wasn't really thinking about this too much this morning, but as I was having breakfast, it occurred to me that, it's very possible that they could have their primetime slot just ripped out right from under them, because of this. And I would not be surprised if that happened. Is it likely to happen? I don't know. It depends on what the ratings were for this event. We'll have to see how that plays out, but very easily, if CBS wanted to, just based upon that, they could easily, rip the rug right out from StrikeForce. Let me talk about some other things, and I've talked about this before, the judging, the reffing, the scoring of fights, that it's been kind of atrocious as of late. It's had problems over the past 2.5 years, more so than usual. And, one of the things I would like to see, number one, is that there is a representative from every athletic commission to form a committee. That committee needs to make unified rules for every single state, as well as provinces in Canada, to regulate the sport of mixed martial arts. There needs to be seminars for referees and for judges of grappling and striking, have people that are, understanding of the sport, so you don't have the foolishness that happened at Bellator with Ben Askren and Ryan Thomas. Because this kind of stuff is just, it continues to snowball. And when you start seeing guys that say, I don't want to watch the sport anymore because it's out of control, that's when you know you've gotten to that point, especially diehard fans. I was watching Mark's video, and to hear him say what he said surprises me, because he's a diehard MMA fan. And that just goes to show that you can only take so much when you're watching a sport, regardless. And when you start seeing the sport taking the wrong turn, you have fans jump in and they start talking about this stuff. But, there's really only one qualified referee in MMA that has had MMA experience, and that's Herb Dean. There's 3 refs that I like all around when it comes to, reffing fights. That's Yuji Shimada, Big John McCarthy, and Herb Dean. Those are my 3 favorite as well as consistent refs. And you can see that Herb Dean's a consistent ref because he's been involved in mixed martial arts. All referees need to have some type of training and some type of seminar to show them, what does a Darce choke look like? What does a triangle choke look like? What happens when a guy gets put on his back? From a combination where it kind of rocks him. These are all things that need to be brought to the limelight, as well as judging. This is what you look for in a fight. This is what you don't look for in a fight. And the problem that we have is that the regulation is not the same all across the board. That's why, and I've talked about this in my reffing and judging video way back. I'll put the link to that video in the sidebar. That it's different in one place because they don't regulate it the same way that another state does. And you can have different outcomes because of that. And it's sad. It's very, very sad to see that, because that's not what the sport needs. It needs to have unified rules across the board. And I think until we see that happen, we're going to keep running into these problems. You're going to keep running into the reffing debacles. You're going to keep running into the judging debacles. You're going to run into this foolishness. And this kind of stuff right here, to be honest, anytime a fighter pulls this, even if they're not fighting, they should be fined and suspended. And it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. This happened over in Hawaii after Return of the King. After KJ Noon's fight, the Diaz's pulled this same BS. And it was a joke. And they should have been suspended. And they weren't suspended. And they weren't fined. That needs to happen. That needs to be more stringent. Other than that, pretty much all I have to say about MMA in general as of late, it's not taking a good turn towards, brighter horizons, if you will. And it's sad. Whether people want to admit that what Anderson Silva did was disrespectful or not, his actions put a bad limelight on the sport. Not how the way he fought, but his actions. And that's a different thing. I want to distinguish that. The first 2 rounds, how he fought, was totally different than the last 3 rounds where he was goofing off. This, combined with that, doesn't make the sport look any better. And it's continuing to have these little things that keep hiccuping, that are causing people to turn their heads and go, I don't know if I want to watch right now. Now, not just casual fans, but diehard fans alike. And that's not good for this sport. So those are my views on it. What happened at StrikeForce was a disgrace. I honestly would like to see both the Diaz's not only fined, but suspended. Yeah, bring criminal charges against them, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to play all that out. But it wasn't a good show for CBS overall after that happened. It wasn't the best night of fights to begin with. And then to have that happen just wasn't good at all. It wasn't good at all. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if somehow CBS tries to wash their hands of, StrikeForce and just mixed martial arts in general because of this, which would be, really, really a shame. And to be honest, guys, you can sit here and say to me that I'm crazy, that, oh, well, let Diaz and them do what they want. They have the right to do whatever they want. But guess what? In the end, it's a shame to see a promotion, if that does happen, this done to them, all because 5 or 6 guys could have controlled themselves and not acted the way that they did. It's a shame. It's an absolute shame. not going to stop watching MMA. I love the sport. I will continue watching it, but where the sport is headed as of late and where it's been headed and just these little things that have been adding up aren't good. And hopefully, we'll have some brighter spots here in the next couple months. Hopefully some things will turn around, but we'll have to see how it plays out. So on that note, you guys, take it easy.